Hey, this is an overview of how to get started in CurriculumTrak. This is the material that we went over in the faculty meeting on February 12th. So if you were not able to be at that meeting, or if you need further review, I hope this will be helpful for you. But this is the screen that you will get to after you first log in. You should have gotten the login information from the email that you got a week ago. It tells you the website to go to, and it gives you your username and a temporary password. Now, I had thought that when you first logged in, it was going to force you to change your password. I realized that it doesn't do that. So the first thing you should do, because all of you have the same temporary password, so you should change your password. So if you would go up here in the top right corner where it says change password, click there, and then you should be able to change the password to something else that would be appropriate. But anyway, I would encourage you to change that. So after you do that, we come back to this screen here, and if you need to know how to get back to this screen, if you click up here where it says CurriculumTrak, that will take you back to this home screen. So anytime you're at any place in the program, if you click there, it's going to bring you back to this. So this is the screen that you see when you first log in. And you notice it has a list, it says My Courses. So I encouraged you all before you came to the meeting to log in and to make sure that those courses that are listed there are actually the courses that you teach. And if you're in elementary school, you notice it does not include things like your social grades or conduct or those types of things, because you don't have lesson plans for those. You don't have unit plans for those. But basically, it's all the courses that you teach that you would have plans for. That's what I'm looking at. So I've just got a lot of classes listed here for myself. Obviously, I don't teach all those classes. I'm officially the teacher for them because many of them are 7-star classes. But this will help us to see what we look at. Now notice there are two columns here. We have one column here that says View Course Curriculum Map. The other says View Course Unit Plans. Okay. This program is set up. There are two different ways you can view the same material. Okay, you're doing the same thing, it's just two different ways of looking at it. So we'll talk about that difference as we go through. But you have the curriculum map view, you have the unit plan view, but in either case, any change you make will be seen in the other. So it's working off the same database. So first, let's look at this menu that's across the top here. We'll kind of work through this. Okay, you have first the curriculum maps. And so let's look at this. I'm going to look at a class. I've entered some dummy information into this, Calculus for Everyday Living. I'm sure you all are interested in how you can use calculus in your everyday life. So that's what this course is for. So I pulled that down and clicked on it. And it comes up. See, I've entered a lot of information into it, but this is the curriculum map view. You notice that it's divided into quarters. Here's quarter 1. Here are the units I'm going to be teaching in quarter 1. And going across here, it shows the information for each unit. You kind of get a big picture view as you look at it this way. You see, we have the benchmarks, and I'm going to explain what all these things are shortly. So don't worry about that, but we have benchmarks, we have the knowledge and skills, we have the biblical integration that you're going to be using. We talk about essential questions, the assessments, the instructional strategies, and the resources that you have. So this gives you, like I say, a big picture view of things. Now, throughout the program, I wanted you to notice two symbols that are used, two icons that are used regularly, which will help you. One is this pencil icon. You see a pencil here, you see a pencil here. Okay, the pencil icon, whenever you see that, it means you can click on it and edit the unit. Okay, so if I'm dealing with this unit here on Introduction and Review, if I click on that pencil, it's going to pull up something that's going to allow me to edit the information. And we'll be going over that in more detail. But anyway, that's what the pencil icon is for. So wherever you see that, it means something you can edit. You see this paper clip. Okay. For a paper clip, it means you can attach something to it. So if I click on the paper clip, I'm able to attach resources to that unit. In this case, I've already attached a document to it, and I'll explain what that is later as well. But at this point, I just wanted to show you what those two icons are for. And like I say, you probably will use this curriculum map view primarily as an overview. You can edit in it or whatever, but for today, let's just think, okay, this helps us to get a big picture of things. Where you're going to be doing more of your work, I think, is if you look at this top menu bar here, instead of curriculum maps, if you pull down unit plans. Now you notice they both show you the same classes. Underneath it, there's a list of all the classes assigned to you. So like I say, it's the same information either way you're looking at it. It's just two ways of looking at it. So I'm going to pull down unit plans, and in this case, I'm going to go to AP Calculus BC. Okay, so I have my AP Calculus BC. You notice there is nothing here. Okay, it's just empty. You have AP Calculus BC. You notice over here is mathematics. That's because that's the subject area that we're talking about. You can pull that down and see other what are called programs, but those are the main subject areas. And within the math, you have these different courses. And I can actually see all of the courses as an administrator, but this will show you all the courses in mathematics. And then within that course, there are time frames and units. There's nothing there because we haven't defined that. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to do. So I want you to do that at this point. What you do here is you've got your course, AP Calculus BC. So edit time frames and units. Notice there's a pencil there, so it means I can edit something. So I'm going to click Edit Time Frames and Units. Now the time frames in our school are the quarters. Okay. So what we're looking at here is adding quarters. We have no time frames. So I'm going to add a time frame. And so I call this time frame quarter 1. And I want you all to do it the same way. Okay, this will help us so that we can keep things together. So you want to say quarter 1. It says position after. So you place it at the top. That's the only place to do it, and we'll show you what the significance of that in a minute. But after you type in quarter 1, click Save down here at the bottom. Okay, now there's quarter 1. Now let's go ahead and add the others. So you click here where it says Add Time Frame. I'm going to add quarter 2. And that's going to come in order, notice, after quarter 1. It assumes that. If you wanted to put it above it, you could do it here. That's where you can put things in a different order. But we're just going through it in order here. So you have quarter 1, quarter 2, then we'll do quarter 3. Save. And then quarter 4. Okay, notice it's putting it after quarter 3, so we save. Okay, so we have quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's how I'd like all of you to set up your system for each of your classes. Okay, now you're going to need to do this for each course. You only need to set it up this one time, but you need to set that up for each course. So for today, just pick out one of your classes and do that. So we have 4 quarters, quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to add, I want you to add a unit. You notice that here beside quarter 3 it says add unit. Well, we're currently in the 3rd quarter of school, so I'd like for you to do it here in quarter 3. So click add unit, and when you click there, it comes up with this. And this is going to be the name of a unit that you're teaching. Okay. Now, if you happen to think of the name that you're teaching now, like maybe you're teaching a unit on birds, or you're teaching a unit on congruent triangles, or you're teaching, whatever else it might be, you can think of the name of a unit, or just make up something. You can go back and delete it easily later. So we're just going to say, here's a unit. This is AP Calculus BC. So we're going to be talking about integration. And it's been 40 years since I had calculus. I just remember that that's what a unit might be called on integration. So I'm going to save that, and it says position after. Again, here's where you can decide what order your units come in. But I'm just going to click save down here. So I have now, notice, in quarter 3, I have a unit on integration. Now, over here, if I click on the pencil, I'm just going to be editing the name of it, or I can delete that unit. This is where you'd come to delete things later. So you just add, I'm just adding the name of the units here. And for today, just add 1 so we can work through it. You can come back later, you can add more. So we're done with this. We've added 1 unit. So I'm going to click close. Okay. After we do that, then I go up here, select a time frame unit. Notice now it says quarter 3 integration. So I've got a unit here. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to pull up, notice, this screen. Now yours might come up that looks like this. Okay, let me show you something up here. You have viewing mode right here and editing mode. Viewing mode, it shows you just an overview. It shows you what your unit is. Here's what your unit information is going to be. Editing mode is where you can change things. So I'm going to click editing mode. And now I can edit each of these boxes. And I'm going to go through what they mean. Okay, but first, let's get an overview here. We have knowledge and skills, which is district, and I'll explain that in a minute. We have biblical integration, that's a district level. We have essential questions, that's a district level. We have assessments as a district level. You scroll on down here, we have instructional strategies, that says individual teacher, and resources are individual teacher. Now, what it means when we talk about district versus individual teacher. Okay. When we have several teachers teaching the same class, okay, we have 2 first grade teachers. They're both teaching first grade, and so these top 4 boxes, okay, knowledge and skills, biblical integration, essential questions, and assessments are going to be the same for both of the first grade teachers. So if in first grade, if Katie Griffin put something here in knowledge and skills, that's going to also show up for Martha's class, or vice versa. If Martha puts something there or edits something there, it's also going to be for Katie's class. So they can, we find that first grade teachers, and those of you that are, several of you teaching the same grade, several teachers, that you track together so that you're teaching the same units at the same time. And basically, and you're covering the same thing. Okay, we want you to be covering the same thing. However, down here, the instructional strategies, individual teacher, and resources, individual teacher. You might teach things slightly differently, even though you're wanting to achieve the same objectives. You may use different resources. You might have different worksheets. You might use different strategies to do it. So these, the instructional strategies and the resources, are different for each teacher. In the first grade, Katie Griffin might decide that her instructional strategy involves cooperative learning. She can check that. Martha may say, no, I don't use cooperative learning in my class, so she doesn't check it, and it's going to be different for each of you. Okay, so that's when we talk about district and individual teacher. District just means all the teachers who teach that same course. In our case, like 2 first grade teachers, 2 second grade teachers, and so on. So that's the difference with that. Okay, so now let's edit this unit. Okay, I've got a unit here on integration. So knowledge and skills, let's go through this. I'm going to enter some information here. Knowledge and skills means my goals, my objectives. What do I want the students to know? You know, you've heard the same thing. Students will know X, Y, Z, or they will be able to do X, Y, Z. Now, again, I'm thinking on the unit level. This is not lesson plans. This is not an individual daily plan. This is thinking about a whole unit. So I've got a unit here on integration. So what do I want the students to know? I can say the students will know, and you have some editing tools here if you want to make use of them. I want them to know how to find the area under a curve. And again, you calculus teachers, please don't fuss at me about what I'm saying. And they will know how to find the slope at a point on a curve. Okay, whatever else. Okay, so I've got several objectives. This is what I want the students to know at the end of this unit. This is what my goals are, my knowledge and skills. That's what we're talking about there. So make up something for this. Okay, if you don't have something right at the tip of your tongue, just make up some things. Put in some knowledge and skills here. Just try that out. Biblical integration. Think about how the Bible applies to this unit. Now, there may be units that you don't really have a specific biblical integration, okay, where you're not really tying Scripture explicitly to what you're doing. But you should give this some thought. How do you tie the Bible into your lessons, into your units? And we might say that God is a God of order, okay, whatever. Okay, so we have biblical integration. All right, essential questions, we're going to skip that for now. I'm planning a staff development time probably early next year on this whole idea of essential questions. If you happen to know what that means, you can enter that in there, but otherwise you can just skip this essential questions. Assessments. How are you going to tell whether the students have achieved the goals that you've set for them? How do you know whether they've done that? How will you know whether the students have learned how to find the area under a curve? Well, you have the typical unit tests. Okay, at the end of the unit, you give them a test. But there are other ways as well that you assess the students. Maybe you have daily homework. Maybe you have a project on finding area under a curve. Okay. Whatever it might be, different. How do you tell whether the students are learning what they should learn? Maybe it's writing an essay, like I say, doing a project, PowerPoint, whatever it is that you use to show whether the students have mastered the material. List those as assessments, and for now, just make up something and put it in there. I do want you to enter something in these three boxes on the knowledge and goals, on biblical integration, and on the assessments. Okay, down here, instructional strategies. Skip that for now unless you happen to be familiar with Robert Marzano's books on classroom instruction that works. That's another thing we're going to do a staff development on probably next year and deal with this. If you happen to know, or if you happen to say, well, okay, one of the things I'm doing in this unit is I'm having the students identify similarities and differences. I'm also having them do cooperative learning. That's one of the things we do. Okay, if you want to check that, that's fine. But otherwise, you can just leave this box, this entire box alone. Okay, resources, the last thing. Notice this is the individual teacher. This will differ or may differ from one teacher to another in the same class. So here you might say that you're going to use the textbook, pages 124 to 150. Okay, and maybe you have a handout. Maybe there is a website. Okay, and so you can list those here. Now, one thing that you can do with the resources, okay, is that you can actually attach these things. If you have a handout, for example, I'm going to go up here to the top of the screen, Unit Attachments. Notice there's a paper clip. So I can attach things here. And so let's say that for this unit, I have a worksheet that I want the students to do. Okay, I haven't attached anything yet, so I'm going to click Add Attachment. And I click the field here. Which field am I doing it to? Well, this is my resources. This is a resource I'm going to use. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to give this a title. Okay, Area Under a Curve Worksheet. Okay, that's just something so that you can recognize what it is. Now, there's several things you can attach here. You can attach a file. Maybe there's a website that you regularly go to that you say, okay, when we go here, when we do this unit, there's a website that has resources, so I'm going to put that here. Or maybe you just have a lot of text you're going to insert. I'm going to attach a file because this is a worksheet. So I click File and I click Browse. And that's going to bring up something here that shows me a lot of things I can attach. Okay, now this is just typical Windows, you use this to find where you have saved a file. Okay, in this case, I'm just going to pull out something at random here, my economic standards. Okay, I double-clicked on that, and notice it put it in here. When I'm done, I click Save down here. Okay, and after I click Save, it takes a second, and there is that attachment, Area Under a Curve Worksheet. I click Close, and it brings me back here. And notice now, under my resources, here is my worksheet. So that every time I go to this unit, there's my worksheet. It's ready for me. Okay, I don't have to hunt it up again. It's attached to that unit. Okay. So that's how you would use resources. Now, the final thing that you'll be doing is back up here at the top. It's the benchmarks. Benchmarks are the external standards that we will follow, that we might be following. We'll be talking about this. Okay, you find benchmarks. If you're in English, language arts, or if you're in math, we have the Common Core State Standards attached here, available for you. If you're a Bible teacher, we have the Christian Schools International Bible benchmarks listed here. If you teach history or science, we have the McREL, that's a Mid-Continent Regional Educational Laboratory, which they have compiled a list of standards to follow. If you're teaching in some other subject, we don't have standards, so you can skip over this. But we're going to attach some benchmarks because what this is doing now, this is showing how does what you're teaching match up with what are generally accepted standards for teaching. If you're teaching math, like this is a math unit, how does this match up with what people nationwide think students in math should learn? So we're going to attach that. So notice there's a paper clip here so I can attach a benchmark. So I'm going to click that. I want you to do that. And okay, now from here, attach benchmarks in the program mathematics. That's what I'm doing. I can narrow this down if I want to because maybe I have a lot of standards here. If you are an English teacher, there's going to be a lot of standards. Okay. One thing you can do is show only the performance standards or benchmarks that are attached to this course or its units. I have gone ahead and correlated standards and benchmarks for the different courses. So if you teach second grade English, you're going to see the Common Core standards that apply to second grade English. Okay, you won't see the ones that apply to fourth grade English or whatever else. But you can narrow it down here if you want to. Okay, you can say, well, let me just see strand or a grade. But generally you'll say show only the performance. You'll have this box checked. So now I'm going to look down here through these standards, And I'm going to see, okay, which of these standards is this unit addressing? Remember, my unit is on finding the area under a curve, or the unit is on integration. And so I'm going to go down here and I'm just going to click some things at random. We have 4 categories across here, P, I, A, and N, and it's explained up here. P means this objective you've presented or just introduced it. There are times when you're teaching something and you just mention something or you just touch on the topic, but you don't really spend a lot of time looking for mastery. So you're just going to introduce it. So maybe you just present something. So I might say, well, this benchmark here about using function notation. I just touch on it in that unit. Okay. If it's I, that means you instruct it. You really spend time teaching that purposefully. Okay. If it's A, that means you assess it. Okay, so you assess it. It's in some way, if it's on a test, if it's on a quiz, if they do a project, some way you're checking, did they actually master that? N, you're not covering it. Okay, you don't cover every benchmark, every unit. You're just picking out the ones that this unit actually deals with. So I might say, well, I presented something in this unit and I assessed, recognizing that sequences are functions defined recursively and so on. Now these are hierarchical in the sense that if you assess something, it's assumed that you've instructed it, and it's assumed that you've presented it. So if you say, well, I actually instructed it and assessed it, well, you click the assessed. You click the one that's the highest that you're actually doing. Okay, I hope that's clear, but if you click one here, it assumes you've done these other 2. The N just means you haven't dealt with it at all. So you notice in this unit I've said I've presented this, but this objective, this benchmark, I've spent a lot of time teaching and it's actually been on a test. Okay, and you can go through, and if there are others, you can do that. Okay, so we'll just say those are the only 2 benchmarks that apply to this unit. So I click Save. Notice now it shows up back here. I presented this and introduced this one. I assessed this one. Okay, so that's how you'll do benchmarks. So what I want you to do for the units, I want you to fill in something for knowledge and skills, something for biblical integration. Now, there's a problem here in that I never clicked Save when I did those other things. So you should be sure you click Save before you do the benchmarks, because otherwise it just kind of lost everything. So click Save after you've done, after you've entered in information down here. Okay, so let's say we're done with this now. Okay, I'm going to click Save, and I'm through with this unit. Okay. So that's how you do unit plans, and you'll do those for each unit of each course. Okay, again, I want you to enter information for the knowledge and skills, for biblical integration, for assessments and resources, and then the benchmarks. Okay, so that's what you'll do. So now let's look back up here at our top menu just to show you a little bit more about the program. Let's look at some reports that we can get. For our reports, there's a number of reports here. I'm just going to show you a couple of them. And I'm going to go to a different course. Let's see, reports. I'm going to look for courses by benchmark. Okay. Here's what that report is going to do. This shows me in math, it shows me all of my benchmarks that are there. I mean, this is from kindergarten all the way up, and all of the courses, and it shows me when certain units, when objectives are presented or introduced, instructed, or assessed. Okay, so if I scroll down through here, Okay, I have to go a long ways down here to get to some things that I've done. You all haven't done anything, so there's a bunch of zeros over there. But I can get over here to, let's see, here's calculus for everyday living. I've done some things in there. So I noticed that, okay, this benchmark, explain how the definition of the meaning of rational exponents and so on. Okay, I have introduced it in 1 unit. I've assessed it in 3 units in that course. Okay, down here, this next benchmark, I've instructed it in 2 units and I've assessed it in 2 other units. Okay. Now here's something, see, here's how this gets useful, because I notice, okay, this benchmark, using units as a way to understand problems, it should be taught in this Calculus for Everyday Living course, but notice, zeros across the board. I have not addressed that benchmark, okay, even though it's something that should apply to Calculus for Everyday Living. Okay, so that's where you might say, okay, maybe I need to address that benchmark. Or you might say, you know, that really doesn't go with this class. Okay, that's where we have a discussion about, does it apply to this class or not? Is it something you should be teaching or not? But see, this helps you to see where the gaps are in instruction. So that's the courses by benchmark report. Okay, let's look at one more report here. The benchmarks by course. Okay, this is the same type of information, but this sorts it, instead of by benchmarks, it sorts it by courses. So I see, okay, here are all the mathematics courses. And here's the Calculus for Everyday Living course. And these are the benchmarks that have been said, okay, these should be dealt with in this course. And again, same information that we saw previously. Notice here's a benchmark that is not addressed in this course. I haven't assigned it to any unit. So I should go back to my units and say, well, I need to find a way to teach that. If that's something that's important for the kids to learn, I should go back and teach it. Okay. That's the benchmarks by course. Let's look at a benchmark map. And we're going to look at the benchmark map by grade. The benchmark map by grade, when I pull that down, okay, this is going to give me more of a graphical approach. Here's all the benchmarks and all the grade levels, okay, for mathematics. Notice that this one is shaded. That means these benchmarks here should be addressed in kindergarten. Okay. If I scroll down the page, notice, okay, here's first grade. These are the benchmarks that should be addressed in first grade. So let me show you now how this applies, though, because you see there's just a bunch of blanks. When you get down here, okay, here are benchmarks for high school. And you notice that here's a benchmark. It has been presented and it's been assessed in the 12th grade. Okay, here's one that's been introduced or it's been instructed and assessed in the 12th grade. And I can look down here and say, okay, well, here's some benchmarks. These should have be taught in the 12th grade, but none of the courses are doing it. So we need to address that. See, that's where we can start looking as administrators, but also as teachers. You can get a graphical view of, are you skipping things? Or are you, are there things that should be addressed that are not being addressed? You can get a look at that. Okay? Now finally, the last report I want to look at is a scope and sequence report. Okay, I pull down reports. I'm going to go down here to scope and sequence. Okay. Now this gives a big picture view of, these are all the math courses we teach. I could pull down here for a different one. I could pull down to English Language Arts, and I see there's all the English courses that are taught. But let's stick with math because I have some information in there. Okay, this shows me all the units. Now I've completed, see, I've done this Calculus for Everyday Living, so this shows me the units that are taught in that course. This helps to give a big picture view of the whole school. What are we teaching in math? Well, here's all the units that we teach in math, all the different courses. Okay, so you start seeing when are things taught. If I want to know when am I teaching Calculus 3? Okay, well, I can, when this is all filled in, I can look down here and see, okay, Calculus 3. Okay, so that's how we can do that. So that's the scope and sequence report. Now, one other thing we can look at here is this that says PDF or print. Any of these things that I can do, I can get a PDF of them. Just to show you how this works, I'm going to go back to my unit plans. Okay, I'm going to look at, okay, let's say my Calculus for Everyday Living. Okay, here's my first unit. I can go up here, click PDF print, and I can either come up with something that prints it. It opens a new window, does away with a lot of the graphics, just makes it easy to print. You can click Save PDF, which I would recommend actually is better because it puts it in a view that fits on a typical page. So if I clicked Save PDF, it's going to come up then that will look like this. Notice now, here's my unit. It has the benchmarks. It has knowledge and skills, but this is something that could be printed out if you want to have it in a notebook or if you need to give it to somebody or whatever, you can do this. Okay, so that's how you would print things. This would be the way that you would do that. Okay, next item on the menu across here, standards and benchmarks. Okay, you're basically only going to see, as a teacher, you're going to see full standards and benchmarks listing. So you can do that. Okay, this is going to show you all the standards and benchmarks that are assigned in this case, it's all mathematics. If I want to see just the benchmarks for kindergarten, which are in the CC, counting and cardinality, I can do that, and it narrows it down. Okay. You can say, well, I just want to see the one, just this one performance standard. Okay. There's just those benchmarks. Okay. So you can narrow that down as much or as little as you want. I'm going to take it all the way back out to where I see all of them. Okay, so there's all of the math standards. Now let's say that I want to know when is the topic of fractions. When do we deal with fractions? Well, I can go up here to benchmark search. I'm going to enter fractions and click search. Okay, this shows me where fractions are dealt with in these standards. Here's grade 3, numbers and operations, fractions. It's going to be in that thing. Here's grade 4. Okay, the numeral there at the first shows you what grade it is. And you can scroll down there and see, okay, there's also, it's dealt with in 4th grade in measurement and data. Here's 5th grade, number and operations, fractions. 5th grade, measurement and data. 6th grade, they deal with it as part of the number system. 7th grade, it's part of ratios and proportional relationships in the number system. You get down here, 7th grade, it's expressions and equations. Okay, so this is going to show you, you might be interested in this just to see where is this topic dealt with in the benchmarks. Next item on the menu we want to look at other district data. Now this is a blessing of this particular program. Like I said, CurriculumTrak is for Christian schools, and all the Christian schools that are using CurriculumTrak, you have access to their curriculum maps and unit plans. They have access to ours as well. Okay, don't be scared by that. These are mostly Christian Schools International Schools, CSI. And so you can find what other districts are using. This can be very helpful for you. Okay, let's say that I'm teaching kindergarten. That's a scary thought. But I'm teaching kindergarten, and I'm teaching a unit on birds. And I want to know You know, I wonder what other schools do in kindergarten on birds. So I go to other district data, search by unit name. So I'm going to click there. And here I could say, well, I just want to look at particular schools. In this case, I just want to look at all the schools. I want to find all the kindergarten units. So I click K. If I didn't click that, it would look for all units and all grade levels. Title keywords, birds. Okay, so I'm going to click enter birds there. I click search, and what this is going to do, it's going to show me all the units taught on birds in all those Christian schools. And here they are. Ada Christian School has a unit, Birds on a Wire, and it's part of their art course actually. Cornerstone Christian School in their kindergarten science unit, and they teach it in January. Here's a unit. So let's see what this looks like. See, if I click on this, it's going to pull up that teacher's unit. It shows here are the benchmarks that are assigned to their school that they deal with. Here are the skills. Okay, different schools define these boxes differently, but in this case, here are the things that they're dealing with. Okay, here's what this teacher wants the kids to get out of this. Here are assessments that they use. Okay, winter worksheets, bird booklets, pinecone bird feeders, the mitten story. Okay, and sometimes they may even have something attached here. Here's winter unit plans. Okay, I'm going to click on that because then that pulls it up and I can see that. And so here is her document that she uses for birds. A science unit about winter weather and birds in winter for kindergarten. Here's a lot of different objectives. Here's a time frame. Okay, here's ideas that she uses. Here are resources that she uses. So, and then you scroll on down. Here's the lessons. Okay, lesson overview. Okay, and lesson plan. Okay, so this tells you what the lesson plans are, what she uses. Here's where you can get a lot of ideas, and I think this is very helpful as Christian schools share with one another. Now, please don't be scared of this, okay? Don't be scared and think, okay, well, I don't want people to see what I'm doing. Okay, this was a fairly complete unit. Notice down here, I'll show you something else in a minute, but notice down here it says contact school regarding this unit. Let's say you see something really fascinating. You think, you know, I wonder if that teacher would share that with me. I'd like to use that. Don't plagiarize, okay? We teach the kids not to plagiarize. Don't you plagiarize. If you're just, if you're just getting some basic ideas, that's one thing. But if you say, those worksheets that she developed are really good, you can contact the school regarding this unit. So you click down here, and you can enter your name, your email address so they can respond, and then put a question. It'll get sent to the school, and then they can reply back to you with whatever information you have. Maybe you have a question about something you see. Well, why are you teaching this? Or how do you teach this? This is where Christian schools can start collaborating together. Now, like I said, that one is more complete. Let me show you. Here's Ada Christian School. Okay, there's not much there. She just has, okay, the name of the unit, Birds on a Wire. There's nothing there. So, some of the schools are going to be like that. Some of them are going to be more complete. So please don't worry and think, I don't want anybody else to see what we have. No, be willing to share. And if yours isn't very complete, that's okay. A lot of other Christian schools are the same way. Okay, so I think that's a real help in this program is the other district data. Okay. Finally, let's look at, I have a toolbox here. That's only for me and as an administrator. You won't have that menu, but you do have a help menu over here. You can pull that down, pull to the help manual, and it's going to pull up a website, and it's going to show you here are a lot of other videos, a lot of other things that you can use to find out more information about it. So that is a quick overview of how this is going to work. So now let's talk about the next steps that need to be done. Okay, think about timeline, especially. When does this have to be done? Okay, what's our time frame? Well, We have to have this completed, our curriculum mapping process for all our courses, for all the units. It needs to be done by next January 31st of 2014. So we have about 11 months, okay? So you've got about 11 months, January 31st, 2014. That's because that is pointing towards our accreditation visit, which will be coming in April. And I'm going to need a few months to work through this and to get it ready for the accrediting team. So January 31st, 2014, it needs to be done. That's a big task, but here's how you can do it to make it manageable. As you're teaching this year, as you're teaching a unit, enter the information for that unit as you teach it. So you start a unit on trees. Okay, you're going to teach a unit on trees in March because the trees start putting out leaves or whatever. Okay, so you have a unit on trees. When you get to the unit on trees, fill in the information on trees, on your trees unit. Okay, and remember, all you need to fill out for the information is going to be for each unit. You're going to do this box here for knowledge and skills, biblical integration. If you have biblical integration, I would encourage you to think that through. Assessments and resources. Okay, you don't need to do anything with instructional strategies or essential questions, but that's 4 things for each unit you teach. And you notice it doesn't have to be a whole lot of information. Okay, if you have in a unit, if you have 3, 4, 5 goals, that's all you list here. And in some cases, as you're teaching out of a textbook, the textbook tells you what the unit objectives are. You can just copy those and put them in here. But do it as you teach the unit. Okay, don't start thinking I have all this information to do. Do it while you're teaching the unit. That means that by the end of this school year, you will have completed all of your unit plans for all your classes from, we'll say, starting in March through the end of the school year. So you'll have a good portion of the second semester done. Then, when school begins in the fall, you finish out the first semester. Start at the beginning, enter the units as you teach them. Okay, so you're not having to enter a whole year at a time. You enter each unit as you come across it. What that's going to mean is that when you, at the end of December, when you've done it, okay, when you've finished, or at the end of January, the only unit you have left to do is going to be whatever you cover in February. That's the only one that you have to do extra besides what you're actually teaching at the time. You see, enter this information as you're teaching it, while you're teaching it. Okay, that way it won't be real time consuming. I can envision that it might take you for each unit, it might take you 10 minutes or so for each course for each unit. So if you teach 7 courses each time you come across a unit, okay, there's 70 minutes, there's about an hour for all your courses. But you generally don't reach a unit all at once. It's not like in all your courses you're starting a new unit, all of them at the same time. But I think that's going to make it manageable. It is work, okay, I admit that. It is work, but remember our introduction, the video introduction that you saw. This is not only for our accreditation, but this is going to help us to upgrade our curriculum across the board. As we all work on this, as we all do this, it's going to be a benefit to you, it's going to be a benefit to the school, and it's going to enable us to continue to offer an academically excellent education. So if you have questions about this, I will give you a link. There will be videos available. You can go to the help menu in CurriculumTrak. You can watch this video again. You can email me a question, come and see me, and I will help you out and will be glad to help you. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to be able to do with it.